Founders, do you have too many plates spinning in the air? Are you running out of hours in the day and days in the week? Our guest is here to share how she helps founders streamline their business to work less and, oh yeah, profit more. I am loving this. Stay tuned for the Startup Life Live Show. Let's glow. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Startup Life Live Show. I'm your host, Ande, Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion to founders around the world. And after raising 4 businesses of my own, I now share founders' startup stories to help newly minted business owners find the solutions and inspiration they need to succeed. And thank you for carving out time to tune in and up your founder game while cheering on a fellow founder, because you never know, a new resource, tool, or solution can be found while hearing a fellow founder's startup story. And for those of you watching now and via the replay, I would be so grateful for your support of this show with a like on this video wherever you're watching, because this show streams live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. And your like helps reach more founders. And if you know someone who would benefit from our conversation today, please tag them and share this link on your feed, because again, reaching more founders will help folks out. And if you're watching on YouTube, oh my gosh, if you haven't done so already, if you would hit that subscribe button and the bell icon, I would be so grateful of your support for the channel. And you know, this show is all about maximizing the joy and minimizing the heartache from founders' journeys. And so your support helps us reach more folks to do that. So I am so excited to introduce you to our guest, Joy Valerie Carrera. So this incredible founder is a Guatemalan-American entrepreneur from New York with a deep expertise in digital strategy, content creation, and online monetization. She's led the expansions of multiple companies while traveling, side hustling, and creating, all before the age of 30. Using a fun edutainment style, Joy Valerie breaks down tech, money, and startup hacks so they make sense to the newbie business owner. Come on, you got to give and join me giving a round of applause. Wait a minute, let me get my clappers ready. And a hearty welcome to really one of my favorite tweets on Twitter. Welcome to the show, Joy Valerie.
Hi, I'm so excited. I'm getting goosebumps, but I'm really excited for this. Thank you so much for inviting me today.
Oh, I am so thrilled to have you. And, you know, Joy Valerie, I'm thinking it's Melissa from Pirouette, New York City. How I found you. I was probably following one of her tweets and she mentioned you. And I said, who is this goddess? And, you know, you're always just putting out from random thoughts to incredible information. And it's just this wonderful, delicious package that you bring to everybody wherever you glow. And I would love to know, and oh, wait a minute, I got to share this with everybody. Okay, folks, look what Joy Valerie has for the Startup Life Live viewers. It's an exclusive from her business, Build with Joy, Manage Your Time, free workbook. Use the code Startup Life Live. Okay, so click the link, scan this QR code, get there, put in the code Startup Life Live. I'm going to be mentioning this several times because this workbook seriously will change your life. It is everything you could ever hope for and dream of to help you button up what you're doing during the day.
So, yeah, and it's a printable and digital, so you can use it on your iPad or print it out if you want.
See, this is what you do. You make everything easy for us. And with your little hacks, your wonderful, meaningful hacks. But this is one thing that really blew my mind with Joy, because of course, once I fell in love with her on Twitter, I had to follow her everywhere she glows, right? Which included Instagram and TikTok. Joy, you pick up, I'm telling you, I mean, some of the videos look planned and thoughtful, but a lot of times you're like, and folks, let me just get this here. And folks, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Hi, kitty. Oh my God.
That's Chihuahua, my coworker here.
Hi, Precious. Hold on. Let me just get him in the full screen here. There we go.
There we go.
Oh,
This is
he is
Chihuahua.
precious. That is
Only
so.
wants attention when he
Yep.
can't have it.
Absolutely. Every parent understands that with kids. They don't want anything to do with you until you pick up the phone. But you became you're so adept. And on TikTok, did you have any idea you were going to reach that level of an audience?
No, I was being very strategic, right? Like I was reading everything, and I think it doesn't necessarily depend on the platform. It's really just understanding how the technology behind it works, right?
Yeah.
And being able to tell a story. So, I was definitely observing a lot of the trends and trying to notice like how to capture people's attention,
Right.
but also like how the algorithm was working, right? So like people be like, oh, the algorithm. And it's like, okay, well, the whole point, and I come from the advertising tech space, right? On the monetization end, the whole point of these platforms is they want to make money, right? So how do you kind of fit into what they're trying to do? So it's like, okay, staying focused, having, clear messages, and being consistent, right? Because they're going to reward you if you're being consistent. So I did like plan out a bunch of content and was like, all right,
were you
let's just focus
dancing?
on productivity. I did not. I don't dance. I'm not a good dancer. I'm the worst Latina. Like I'm not stereotypical at all. I can't really dance. I trip over myself.
Oh my gosh. But Joy Valerie, here's the thing is, I've looked at TikTok and I even watched, backstage Capital COO, Christy Pitts. She's just been getting on there, just talking to the camera, talking about startup funding, things like that. How did you create content because you gained a great audience? I've just been afraid that I'm not creative or fun enough.
Well, I was actually feeling the same way, right? And I was just like, okay, I have like a couple of 100 people that followed me from Instagram or from Twitter. And I think also a lot of the tutorial content, right? Like people want to either be entertained or they want to be educated or they want to be inspired, right? That's like the main pillars of marketing. And that really was what started setting it off. So funny enough, it was a very short clip that set it off where I actually messed up that went viral. And
what happened?
Like I was trying to show people like a tutorial. A friend like asked, that's the other thing. I engage with people when they ask me questions, right? So I'm like, hey, like if you have a question, like I'm here to like share what I need.
So you were doing live?
No, I was making I had made like the megaphone effect, and a friend commented and was like, hey, how do you make that effect happen? So I responded and recorded, like screen recorded how I did it. And I actually like skipped a step. So people started commenting and were just like, oh, you messed up, like, or I can't find it. So I was responding to people like, oh, actually, like you have to make sure that you get this step in, right? Like I just assume that people would know to go there. And because it's like people were like, you messed up. The trolls on TikTok were just like, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing. But I had so much content from before there that people started following, right? And that's the whole point. It's like, whenever, that viral thing, like either you get really lucky or you've been like strategically planning, right? You're just like, I'm just trying to give valuable content that when someone finds you, they kind of stick around, right? And kind of just see that journey. And then the people who've been following for a while, like they become your biggest supporters and even friends, right? Like it's just people who see you grow, especially when you're transparent. I know there's a whole big move about build in public, which I recently found out about, and I guess I've been doing that, and I'm just like, well, yeah, I'm like this little brown girl that's into STEM. Where was I going to find people besides the internet, right? Like,
but isn't it really cool though that you made a gaffe, right? You left out a step, and everybody, of course, wanted to glop on and say, you missed this point, and you're like, whatever, doing my best here. But at the same time,
like, you're welcome.
But then instead they glopped onto you. So anybody who's thinking about blowing it, live or on TikTok or IG, don't worry, because then people are going to comment more, and then you're going to get stickier, right? And get the presence going.
Yeah. And I think that's the other thing. It's like, we're all going to mess up. Like no one's perfect. And at the same time, it's like, okay, how do you turn that into a win, right? It's like, oh, okay, I learned my lesson. All right, I'll better luck next time.
Right.
Starting to fight with people.
But on TikTok, I know. Please get over yourself and don't mistake me for someone who cares what you
Exactly.
think. But
We don't have time for that at all.
yeah, no, we keep it moving, folks. Keep it moving. But so on TikTok, you can upload. So you don't have to be live like a IG story or something like that. You can upload a nicely pulled together piece of information that will edutain, which you're so good at, folks. Yes?
Yes. So I like to batch a lot of my content in general. I'm taking a big break right now as I'm launching my boot camp and everything. But usually you can save things as drafts. And recently online, and I shared this on my TikTok, you can actually upload it to your computer as well. So if you edit something on your computer, you can just schedule it on TikTok as well. Via the online platform. A lot of the times people think they need all these extra software, but it's natively built into most of the platforms.
Hey, Leslie, thanks for stopping by and saying hello, goddess. So her question is, how do you balance responding to so many messages on multiple platforms? Which, by the way, Leslie, is why I love Pinterest. There's no peopling. How do you balance that?
I need to get into Pinterest for that reason.
Just a little break, post and run. See you, bye. But it's so true. You don't want to leave people hanging. How do you manage that?
I very much practice a method called time blocking. So I've been pretty transparent about having ADD and everything. So this is one of the things that really keeps me on top of everything. And I actually have built into my schedule, okay, this is business development time, or this is when I answer my emails, answer my, DMs and whatnot. And I never really get complaints from people oh, you don't answer right away, right? It's more just no,
and see, that keeps you from getting exhausted, I imagine, right? Because if you're just constantly doing a little of this and ooh, and then a little of that and ooh.
And the other thing that I do is also check on the web version instead of the phone version. So I actually delete Instagram off of my phone to not be distracted. And I know these are all my secrets. I download it.
Wait. So how can you, how do you participate on Instagram without it being on your phone?
Oh, so there's an app called the Threads app, which I think is perfect for any founder to not get distracted. And that one's only your DMs and Instagram stories.
Okay, I'm looking that up, everybody.
It's by Instagram, so it's not like a third-party app that's going to get your account banned or anything.
All right, so I'm going to put that into the threads and into the show notes, everybody. I'm going to add it to my Pinterest board. The Startup Andelicious resources. Hey, Eric, how are you today? It's a gorgeous day in Beverly, Massachusetts, where you have a phenomenal coffee shop. This gentleman, of course, is a Boston fave. I'm telling you, he has started the best conversations over coffee. He would, back in the day when we could meet in person, feels like so long ago, Eric would take coffee around to all the, the WeWorks, the CICs, all the startup hubs, and just say, hey, let's have a conversation over coffee. And then he opened his own coffee shop in Beverly, maybe like Beverly Farms, which is just a beautiful little hood right by the ocean. And he's there with and you talk about joy. This man is filled with joy. And he had to shut down one time because someone did get, diagnosed with COVID, and he's been, managing it really, really well through the whole pandemic. Eric, really, as soon as I get my second vaccine, and it's been a week or so, I'm coming and we're having coffee in person. I can't wait to see you. And Mia Voss. Okay. Now, Joy Valerie. Mia is an extraordinary woman out there. She wears many tiaras, from the hard hacker she does building inspections to being the host of the Shit We Don't Talk About podcast. Phenomenal podcast. And I highly recommend everybody going over to Spotify and following and listening to Mia there. But she's also an actionist. So she's like an activist who takes action and really makes shit happen. And then she also is a brand ambassador. She's doing lots of fun things in life. Really great. Hi, Mia. So good to see you today. So, Joy, there you were, enjoying life, as a baby, because you're so young. What
He's
happened?
29 and a half
I
and not
know.
eligible for the COVID vaccine yet.
Almost though in New York,
Almost
almost.
1 more week.
1 more week. So exciting. But how did you become an entrepreneur? Was entrepreneurship in your life? Were people, showing you? Did you have role models or did you figure it out yourself? How did you launch your first business and what inspired you?
So it's funny enough that you mentioned that. I recently was chatting with my dad and realized when he was 29, because we were talking about, he's just like, oh, you're 29. I'm just like having a midlife crisis because I'm like, 30, which apparently everyone says is like your 20s, but with money. So I like that. So we were talking about it and I was like, what were you doing at 29? And my dad actually had a bodega. And funny enough, I basically grew up in that bodega. Like he used to put me in the little milk crates, right? When I was born, literally like a baby, like blankets and everything while they're watching me setting up the whole bodega. So I was just like, oh wow, like I was literally just born into entrepreneurship, right?
And I was just kidding when I said that, by the way.
No, I know.
Yeah, you were
It's
as a
funny 'cause I
baby.
didn't realize that until you said that. I was like, oh, literally, there's like pictures of me just like little thing. I was like, that looks unsafe. But yeah. Yeah, so it's like funny. And I think my parents are Guatemalan immigrants. I'm first generation. So we've always had to work, right? Like we've always had to make it. We came here for the American dream, bought a house, white picket fence, literally like white picket fence in Queens. And, Queens is one of the most diverse places in the world. So you're surrounded with people from all over the world with that same ambition, right? Like,
Right.
just coming to build, right? From, they immigrated here. And especially where I grew up was a lot of like Eastern European folk, a lot of like Latino, Filipino folks, right? Like, that's what we came here for. And funny enough, when I've traveled to Guatemala now, most of my my family are entrepreneurs, right? Even in Guatemala. And, they're doing much better than we are here because they didn't have to go through the whole immigrant struggle.
Right.
But even my grandmother, right? She was a single mom with like 9 kids, I
Oh
believe.
my gosh.
So she would, anything that she could do, she would sew, she would sell tortillas, go to the markets. And so I think that's always been something within both my mom and dad, where it was like, okay, like we have to make it work. We need to figure out how, without realizing like that is entrepreneurship, right? Like
Right.
most immigrants, they, we get the job done. Like that is so true. And I think that's a lot of the entrepreneurial spirit, but often we lack the resources, right? Or we don't even know that it is technically entrepreneurship what we're doing.
Right.
And
And
yeah,
did you try corporate? Did you get a job working for someone else for a
so
while?
I did. I actually, funny enough, I now work in tech on the business operations side, very specifically, like more focused on media, revenue generation, all of that fun stuff. I make content. I've always loved blogging and creating. If you follow me on Twitter, I put random ideas out there. I'm like, guys, I'm gonna have this show one day, like where we're just
Oh, yeah.
gonna do the silliest things, right? But before that, I actually studied chemical engineering. So it has nothing to
I need
do
to
with
like do that like what?
yeah, when I tell people, they're like, wait, what? Because I went to Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York. So most people will just assume, oh, I like it. You have it. Um,
A
yeah, oh my God.
switcheroo.
I love all of these like little changes and everything. We need the sound. But yeah, I went and I studied at RIT. So most people don't like ask any questions because they're like, oh, it says tech in the name. And I was like, I didn't study tech, right? Like a lot of our foundation is very technical, very advanced for the school. But I actually went initially to study chemical engineering because I loved math and I loved chemistry and I like building things. So I wanted to initially, I was like, oh, maybe I'll do fashion. And then I was like, I am not visually creative at all. And one of my teachers was like, oh, I have an engineering like friend that makes makeup and hair products. And I don't know if you can see my hair, it's very curly. And now I figured out how to manage it. There we go.
Gorgeous, gorgeous.
But, you know, as a kid growing up with curly hair, kids are very mean. And so it was like very poofy, very hard to manage. You know, I was very much a nerdy kid. And so I was like, okay, I want to build it somehow. But going there, I realized I really hated being in a lab. I'm like a social introvert, right?
You're an ambivert.
Like,
I think, because I think you have moments where you're just really out there with everybody. Then you go and you get very quiet. And you come back.
And maybe it is like a little bit of the ADD, but I'm very like, whenever it's like my type of people, right? I just like instantly connect. I love it. Like we could talk about nerdy things all day. So yeah, curly hair club. but yeah, it was just a lot of, you know, I didn't really like the laboratory portion of it. And a lot of the people, my professors, they were like obsessed with what they did. They were excited to teach us. And I didn't feel that. So I was just like, okay, but my goal was, you know, every immigrant child's dream is just to like have a stable like job, right? Like stability. Our parents want us to do better than they did, want us to get that like job. You know, doctor, teachers, engineers, even, you know, my family in Guatemala that are entrepreneurs, they're doctors, lawyers, engineers, right? Like very to the line, you know, actually I have a couple of cousins now that are chemical engineers, but that's
so
like
everybody has a very strong left brain.
Yes, very much. My mother's actually super artistic though, so it's pretty funny on that point.
But you still, even as an artist, you've got to bring in that left brain for the linear work that you're doing along with that right brain. And you use your right brain a lot. So I just want to introduce you to Ivy. Hi, Ivy. Ivy has an amazing accelerator in Kenya. Okay. And she's rocking the startup life and making sure founders in her area, everywhere she goes, have what they need. And here is someone who lives here in Massachusetts, but you're going to love the purpose behind Zaze. It is a phenomenal olive oil. And all the farmers are female farmers where they harvest this olive oil. So specifically in Turkey, but making sure it's not only is socially responsible, economically responsible, but also lifting, because you know, you give a woman an opportunity with a business, right, Joy? So many things can happen. So thank you, Laura, for creating this beautiful brand and this outstanding tasting olive oil. Hey, Kelly, how are you? You know, authors absolutely need automation, right?
Yeah, that way you can focus on your craft.
Right. So we're going to learn a lot. So keep, you know, hanging in there. And yes, the Francis is going on. And Mia, you know the ambivert thing. I mean, Mia does live shows, of course, and the podcast. And hey, Leslie, that is a beautiful, love the name already. Build with Joy is beautiful. And, you know, everybody's chiming in. I'm trying to do tuning in and chiming in at the same time. And I could not come up with that word. When you empower a woman, you transform a village. And, you know, this was initially really amplified back in the 80s with Anita Broderick. And she went from the UK, body something. I'm forgetting the name of her business, but she went in and she got all the products to her body care products from women in Africa. And it was her way of lifting up the economy in those areas. So agree. And Kelly's right in there too. So true. So I'm just going to remind everybody very quickly, just in case you have to fly, I don't want you to forget to grab this special because we're going to learn how to manage our time. And fortunately, Joy Valerie is giving us a great opportunity with her free workbook, Manage Your Time workbook. Use the code Startup Life Live. You can scan the QR code or pop in that link. And I'll put the link into the comment threads as well, everybody. But I'm going to keep popping that up because Startup Life Live community loves the free, but also we love to get to know our other founders, add win by being, participating in what you're offering, Joy Valerie. And also we need the systems, authors, solopreneurs, and people with, employees, and team members. We need these systems. So you launched your business, you got great experience out in the world. You took this incredible degree that you have in chemical engineering and started to apply to something that made your heart sing. But I'm very curious as to why you landed in streamlining systems and automation for this segment, which is, usually you're working with startups or small businesses, right?
Yeah, now I exclusively work with startups and, female founded, not necessarily only female founded, but social impact businesses. So folks who are trying to build something that's making the world better somehow. And that's one of the perks of working for yourself. You get to decide who you work with. And, I've been working with people building cool software, people who are just starting their businesses and really just trying to get that foundational operating, structure.
Yeah. And Joy Valerie, when you put out your shingle, how did that happen? I say shingle, it's just old term, I know. But when you said, I'm going to go and help people in this specific way, how did you find anybody to help? Were you already doing it in an organization? Did you have a built-in referral system?
So kind of how I got into chemical engineering to this, my last year of college, I switched my major to international studies because I took an anthropology class. And I was like, I want to, change the world and make a difference. And traveled. I got to study abroad. And I was just like, okay, there's so much innovation happening all over the world, right? I saw it in Guatemala. I got to study abroad in Kosovo. I went through the Balkans. And I really wanted to just, somehow help, right? And I was like, I'm going to make a difference. And I think that big leap kind of threw me for a loop because I was like, okay, now what do I do? And I volunteered with AmeriCorps. Back in the day, there was no Obamacare, so I didn't get to go to the Peace Corps like I wanted. So I was like, okay, well, let me help back at home, right? And I started working for an organization called Grameen America. So and that's why I loved it when you were like, when you empower a woman, that was the whole point behind it, right? It was started by Muhammad Yunus. I got to meet him there while I was there, which was really cool. And the whole point was microloans, right? To be able to empower a woman to start a small business, not even just a small, a micro businesses, essentially, right? The people who are doing their nails at coming to your house and doing nails, or getting, selling food and things like that. And it was really to start being more sustainable and self-sustainable, especially women as head of the household, and being able to have that empowerment financially. So I love the mission there. And I got there and they were like, you went to tech school. Can you help us? Can you do the computer stuff? I was the youngest person there. I just graduated and, went to RIT. So everyone immediately is like tech. And I was just like, I have chemical engineering. If you know anything about it, it's not technical. It is pen and paper. I took physics. I wasn't allowed to use a calculator, it is a lot of numbers and memorizing. So I was just like, I'll figure it out. Right. And I think that was always the engineering side of everything. Right. And
solving a problem.
Also, exactly. Always solving a problem and finding the easiest, most efficient way to do it. And so, we had all these databases and, paperwork, and they were like, here, enter it, do data entry, do, clean up this stuff. And I was like, that's a lot of effort. I'm not about to sit here. I hate wasting time. So I was just like, okay, cool. Let me figure out, I'll do it a couple of times to figure out what the moving parts are. And then was just like, oh, okay, there's this computer program called VBA, which Excel runs on, and you can write a whole script or you can record the macros. And I was like, oh, this is about to make my life so much easier, right? So
some of us would see that and go, no, thank you.
Well, that's
but you saw it and you went, I'm all over this.
Yeah, because it's yes, right? When you compare it at first, you're just like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to put extra time in to learn and do it. But once you build it, then you're just immediately saving so much time. Like it's exponential after that. And I think that's the part that people hate, that like, I have to sit down, I have to get into the software, I need to build a system, I have to document things. That's the part that everyone hates, which is how I get hired. And I'm like, listen,
Right. And so
I'm
now
in
you're
Marie
like, whew, this is just lighting me up and turning me on. I'm
yeah,
loving, like, I just saved all this time and efficiency and I loved it.
exactly. And I think that's how I started realize it didn't take me until, you know, recently in the last couple of years, realizing like this was, you know, my area of expertise, like my zone of genius. Because I was like, I'm the type of person that like, you can just be like, how do I do this? And I'll be like, I don't know, but let me find out, right? Like, let me learn. I'm your friend that reads the instructions. I've always been that kid that like, you know, the instruction manual, everyone throws them away. And I'm just like, how exactly is this built? Like, I always want to know how things are built to be able to make it better.
Right.
So yeah, I'm that person.
I love this. I love Eric. I love your comment. This is Eric. Folks, Eric Cox, he has the business media prepared so that when you get that mic put in your face, you know what you're going to say. But that is the point. You know, you work with the folks that you want to work with and you find them. You do this very important thing that I'm sure some of you know about. And if you don't, I'd be happy to send it to you. And it's called the customer persona exercise. But you do that to make sure that you find these people that you love and adore. And that's how did you get that kind of traction? How did you find these folks?
So it's kind of funny because I, you know, when I finally went into like tech, I was just there with the mindset. I was like, I'm going to learn as much as I can. And I was always ops. So I ended up leading digital operations and business intelligence at my last company.
I was always ops. You know, whenever I hear that, I always feel like, you know, what's the sit rep? And I just see the, you know, SEALs in action or whatever. I'm an ops.
That's basically what we do, you know, except we're at a computer. If you're in the digital space, but usually we're the ones like putting out the fires, building out like, you know, like standard operating procedures, just making things as smooth as possible. So I worked at this corporate company, Grameen America, and then after there, I worked at a legal aid clinic. And again, they were like, here, you know, you're our tech person. Like, so that really made me see how much there was a need for it, especially in the impact space and the nonprofit space, but there wasn't that room to learn, right? Because a lot of the time you were just fixing things, you know, I was like the IT person.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, well, I want to learn a lot more. And that's how I got into advertising tech, because I was like, how are these Facebook ads following me? Like, how does the internet make its money? I loved blogging as a teenager, and I was like, how does bloggers make money, right? Like, I'm trying to figure out how the internet made money. And and also at the same time, when I was in immigration, I was doing a lot of intakes, and a lot of the kids were telling me like, well, I'm getting my information from Facebook or like WhatsApp. And I was like, technology is having a huge impact on everything that we do, right? Like, and this was before fake news, before all of this. And I was just like, I'd done my thesis on migration and like reproductive education in Guatemala. And, you know, a lot of the things that we're noticing were just like, wait, like these have societal implications, right? Like a lot of the influence that you see, like the news and the stories and how they're being told, who's telling it. So I became interested in knowing, because I'm like, you got to follow the money at the end of the day.
And what's behind all of this, really?
Exactly. So that's how I found myself in the dark parts of the internet, advertising technology, which is how the internet makes its money, which people don't, once you start explaining it, they're just like, I'm afraid of the internet now. But I was like,
Joy Valerie, you give new meaning to the word curious minds want to know. I mean, you're like,
I go deep end. I just
pulling on that thread, pulling on it. And I love what Fran says. Francis, I love what you said here. Figuring it out is exactly what the micro, small, new entrepreneur does not have time for. Yes. I mean, can we just use that slogan for Build with Joy? That's perfect.
Yeah. And I think that's why that's what I realized too. It's like a lot of the times, you know, people don't know what they don't know. Right. So I basically have used a lot of my skills that I have built for other people to just create the blueprints for folks and being like, okay, here's the best tech tools to use, right? Here's, you know, you don't have time to get a developer. You don't have time to learn how to do it yourself. There are a lot of people who do, and those are the folks who are going to support these startups, right?
That's right.
But definitely, you know, I have like a boot camp that I've launched where each week we kind of just dive in and we're like, all right, let's get the nitty gritty out of the way, right? Especially focusing on your numbers, because at the end of the day, that's what matters. But at the
Right.
same time, the impact that it has. And I think
Right.
that's a lot
So
of
do you
the
help them
part that
set
people
it up? I
struggle.
mean, they don't have to come in and figure it out. You have figured it out. So tell us, is that what the boot camp is for? To show them how
Yeah,
the money flows through. So you start off with what you're going to spend, i.e. invest, and then how.
so more of like how you're gonna do it on the long term,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, like this week is week 2, and we were like, okay, I like using the profit first method. I wish someone would have told me about this when I had first started.
Love profit
Yeah,
first, everybody. Michael
game changer.
McKelowitz. Oh my gosh. I interviewed Mike back in 2015.
Oh my God, you did?
Phenomenal. Oh yeah.
Wow, I just
Phenomenal.
heard about him last year, and I was just like, I know so many companies that should have been doing this from day one,
Yeah.
because most of the time, people are just trying to figure it out, right? Making ends meet, burning through money, burning
Not
through
putting
their
money
friends and
aside.
families'
I
money.
know, not
Yeah,
putting money aside for taxes, not really
yeah.
understanding
Not
the
paying
money end.
themselves as
Right.
well. And that's another big
Right.
issue. And I think especially for folks who are in the social impact space, they want to do the most, right? So my parents also have nonprofits. And I think that's the other thing that I've always seen. It's like you put yourself last at the end of the day. So it's like, how do we build sustainably, right? But also taking advantage of the technology that is available now and making it easier for us, right?
Well,
Like trying
right
to
now,
use
Mia
the
Voss
software
is
that we
fanning
have.
herself because she's just loving that efficiency. It makes her heart go pitter patter.
Yes.
And Kelly is like, oh gosh, wasting time annoys me. I'm right there with you, Kelly. It is so unproductive, and finding and streamlining is so important. And Melissa, I was saying earlier to Joy Valerie, I'm sure this is how I met Joy Valerie. I'm sure you tweeted something of hers, Melissa. Oh, here's the kitty. Mia, look at the kitty. How cute. So, Melissa, I want to thank you for this great introduction. Everybody go visit Melissa's company, which is Pirouette, New York City, NYC, a phenomenal clothing, fashion company, fashion brand. And yes, hi, Heather. Yes, curious minds want to know. And I tell you, Joy Valerie takes it to a whole new level. Yes, the cat wants in. He's so cute. So now you're onboarding, you've got boot camps. How did you figure out all of these products that you needed to monetize? Because you had to come up with a way to serve your social impact companies who aren't the most profitable. Usually they're not, having tons of revenue perhaps coming in. I'm sure some do. How were you able to find the pricing? How were you able to find a way to find them and reach these customers and make their hearts go pitter patter?
Yeah, I think that was always the hardest thing, right? Because I was like, I want to help people. I want to do it at an affordable price point. I love working with like the bootstrap founders, right? The ones that are just, ready to just go all in, but also have amazing ideas. And you realize you're like, if only you had this foundation, right? Or here's this tool that makes your life a ton easier. But realizing I didn't have the time or bandwidth as well. And then again, putting myself last. So one of the biggest things that I started doing was actually workshops all of last year. And that's really what has finessed it to this year. I am, like the throw spaghetti at the wall type of person. I think a lot of us that are entrepreneurial have a million ideas, and it is really about now focusing on the one that's going to get you to your end goal the fastest and be able to raise as much capital for the rest of your business, right? So it's like, okay, what gets me to my end goal, which is to serve more founders and be able to provide and create more educational content, and also having that impact that also can pay myself, right? To free up more of my time. So I think I definitely found that, I was doing workshops, I teamed up with other folks, I did consults, right? And like I mentioned before, I didn't really necessarily have the social impact base, because a lot of the people I was working with that would hire me were publishers, which are just like websites and such. And those were the people that knew that they needed to hire me. And I was like, I'm done with that. Like, I don't want to work with just like any media company. You know, I want to be very intentional with who I'm working with, make sure that like my brains and my knowledge are being used for good, and having positive influence. And I think that, you know, the balance that I found was like, okay, I got like one, or, you know, for right now, I've definitely streamlined even like my own personal finances. I was like, all right, let's get out of debt. I paid over 37,000 in debt in the last year because I was like, let's be aggressive and, you know, trying to do that. A lot of the debt that I went into just trying to figure it out too much, which is, you know, like a lot of us, I think.
But I just used the word publisher. So I just want to bring Kelly back up. Kelly, she understands that side of the business. So just, you know, a little promoting of Joy Valerie when I have a chance. And Kelly, speaking of Kelly, you have this great question. How do you suggest we narrow down what to do first?
Yeah. So definitely, I think that's the hardest thing for everyone. So I think the biggest thing that helps is really like finalizing what your services are, right? Because even I've had to cut a bunch of stuff. I still will always cut back. At the end of the month, I like going through and being like, okay, how much revenue came in, right? So this is where the numbers are important. How much time did you dedicate to that? And how much money did you invest to be able to get that?
Do you have to do an audit of your day? Is that how you help people find out?
Yeah, so I
will
typically do like an audit of the finances, right? I think that's the biggest one that is just like a red flag.
Why do you start there though? Because most people will be like, well, why don't we start on my productivity, or why don't we start over here? Why do you start in the finances?
Well, I think because that way you're actually being able to measure how productive you are, right? Because if you're just like, oh, I made $5,000, and you're just like, cool, and then it's like, okay, now how much did you work? Did you work like 100 hours? Because that's not that much once you start, you know, like
25 cents an hour right here.
Yeah. And you're just like, oh, I would, if you were to pay yourself, you wouldn't even pay yourself minimum wage at that point, right? So then you start realizing, you're like, oh, wait, okay, so which one was, you know, very much like the lean method, the MVP method. But I think in terms of what your time is being spent on and what is getting you to that end result, right? So I'm like, okay, and I think a lot of folks, especially in the social impact space, will feel like a little uncomfortable charging, right? Or raising their prices. But it's like, okay, but the more you are able to free up your time and energy, the more impact you can have, right? The more time you can give back, the more scholarships you can make available, right? The more you can partner up with nonprofits. And I think it's really about shifting that mindset.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I'm having a Andelicious moment. Here's why. 2 reasons. One, starting with the end in mind. I know it sounds cliche, but honestly, you've got to know where you're going so you can work backwards and take those baby steps, all right, to that goal, which you might shift, you might refigure as you go along, but you've got to have that strategy in place so that you can start building toward it. And then the money. You have to know what is going out. What are you investing in? What are you wasting money on? What is important for running your business? What isn't? And what do you need? Because that's how you understand how much money needs to come in so that you are not just profitable, you are sustainable. So and founders, you know this, you see the glorification of millions in money raised and millions of money in revenue. None of that matters if at the end of the day, you're in the red, not the black. And so Joy starting on the money just makes me go, yay! And you know, Joy has lots of support in her area from the pets. So we're so happy to hear.
The little Pomeranian is running around. They all want my attention.
Of course they do, because you're so delicious. But I really want you folks to take that in. Take it in about why Joy Valerie starts with the money in your finances, because then also you're going to know how much you're going to have to invest or what you're going to need to invest on what's next. So after the money, where do you go in helping them?
Yeah. So I think, you know, first seeing the money, then looking at the time, right? Like how much time did you spend on something? Because if you ended up being like, oh, cool, I spent, you know, I made $100 and I spent 10 hours, that's $10 an hour, versus I made $100 and I only spent, like 30 minutes. That's a way higher return on your investment of money and time. So I think that definitely will help you make a decision on what to focus on, right? And I have this problem all the time. I have new ideas all the time that I want to launch, and then I'm like, focus, right? Because I'm like, those can come next, right? That's V2, and you can add those on later, but focusing first on what's going to get you to your end goal the quickest.
And I think, of course, again, the chemical engineering was on purpose, folks, because this brain is a problem solver. And anytime you're in engineering, you are just over solving the problems. But secondly, Joy Valerie, you're always so open about the fact that you're ADHD. So distraction is something you work with. Also understanding that if you have a deadline, you might improve, the outcome if you, time chaunch it. I'm thinking that, you're helping people solve these problems because you understand intimately how important it is to have this level of structure in your life.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everything that I always tell folks and share is because I've done it the wrong way. So I am a very learn by doing type of person. So I'll usually test it out. If you've been following me for a while, you'll see I tested every platform. Just to see what works, what doesn't. I like to get hands-on, get dirty, and just figure it out. But also because that way it informs on how, what the best strategy is for other people. But especially for myself, managing my own time has always been a struggle. I was diagnosed when I was 24. So by then, I'd developed a lot of coping mechanisms that now I realize I'm like, oh, that was just me trying to survive. And now understanding how my brain works has been a game changer, because I was like, okay, this is how I harness in on the things that, that I know, I know that I need that pressure, right? I just don't function without pressure. So I got myself one of these cool timers, right? And it's really cool. You could just put it on. For my bootcamp folks, I do this with them as well. We have deep work sessions where I'll just put it, be like, okay, 45 minutes, we're going to focus on one task, right? And single tasking for me is the easiest way. Because a lot of people think oh, you have to do multitask, right? And it's yeah, but that's a lot of brain power versus when you're trying to focus and get something done, being okay, let's just go through the list and be okay, this is done. Now the next thing. And also building in that reward system for yourself, because if you tackle it in and you try to hit something really, really big, then you're just going to be disappointed in yourself versus breaking it down into chunks. And you're just yes, I'm winning. I can keep going. Exactly. So I think, that's not just for folks with ADD, but I think at the same time, a lot of us that do struggle with ADHD, we often, find rejection and failure to be, it hurts us physically, sometimes for me, whenever I'm stressed, I physically feel it, right? My whole body tenses up. And I think, it really expresses differently, or we think that we're just weird. I always thought it was weird how, I thought this was normal to just analyze everything. I see the world in numbers and bullet points, and I'm always just okay, very logic oriented, and then realizing oh no, not everyone sees the world that way, right?
I'm gonna pop this back up for anybody tuning in. Be sure to grab this Manage Your Time free workbook by the woman who loves solving problems and loves efficiency, and use the code Startup Life Live. You can scan the QR code, do the link, the bit.ly Manage Your Time workbook, bit.ly link, but go in there and get this. It's for free right now for the Startup Life Live community, because listen, time management has been in our world for forever. I mean, I'm old, so I've been around for decades, and I understand what we were taught back in the day. We used to have, anybody remember the Filofax system? I mean, we had so many different, cute little things that we carried around with us all the time. But digital and these platforms that can distract the heck out of you, just because you feel compelled, because you'd rather go and find out the conversation going on or what new outfit are they wearing over at Pirouette, New York City, NYC, and not, stay focused on your time. So especially for entrepreneurs, because there's so many scary moments in the day, and you can get just overwhelmed by those big, hairy, audacious tasks that you need to do. for example, a pitch deck, or for example, that customer acquisition strategy that you're trying to pull together, you're not going to knock that out at once. What's the best way for people to tackle those big, overwhelming moments, especially for the newbie founder?
Oh yeah, definitely just bucket, like breaking it down, right, into simpler tasks, and being able to actually set some time apart for that. So if you're just like, okay, it seems daunting, but then if you're just like, okay, my deck, right, I need to pull my numbers, right, I need to figure out like what, maybe the aesthetics comes last, right, then I'm gonna like write the copy, that you start to break it down. You're like, okay, it's not as daunting as it seems like it is going to be, because everything seems a lot scarier until you actually start doing it.
And we want to remind first-time founders out there is no training program for this crazy world called startup life. So do not feel, do not shit on yourself. All right.
Yeah, you could do any program, you could join any bootcamp accelerator, but like until you're actually doing it, you'll see it, right? So it's like, even if people give you the blueprints, you still have to put the work at the end of the day, but like you're also going to find the system that's best for you.
And so, and you're really good at doing this on Twitter, talking about how you test. Tell folks about some of the times that you've done this. Just, hey, I just tested this platform out and here's what I learned.
Yeah, so I definitely I ask people, right? Like I will start DMing like people that I know to give me feedback. But also I like putting down a mini roadmap, right? So I will, right now I'm actually testing if I want to host my website still on WordPress or use Ghost. Actually, I have 4 different ones going on.
I've never even heard of Ghost. Where have I been?
There's a lot of things, and I love dabbling in web development a bit. So like I know a little bit of everything. So just because you have to figure out how things are built. But I'm just like, okay, even like I'm getting stuck on the like, okay, which one do I pick? But I think setting a roadmap for yourself where you're just like, what's the end results, right? So it's like, one, hitting profit, that's the main goal always, but also, me, and also setting some expectations for yourself. So if you're like, I'm going to test out this software for like 4 weeks, right, and see how it goes with XYZ, and also kind of being able to evaluate it based off certain metrics that you put in place that work for your business, right? Everyone's going to have some different metrics, but I think definitely the key is to give yourself a time limit to be able to test it and collect that data essentially.
Yeah. And I was busy sending out a link to everybody. Sorry for the pause there. I just wanted everybody to have the link in the show notes, in the comment section as well, to grab this workbook. Now you talk about it in your boot camp. Is the boot camp set up not just to learn systems and automation, but to work together? And how do you feel about
it's definitely for accountability?
All right. I just want to hear everybody, even in the replay, I want to get some emoji in the comment section about accountability. How do you feel about accountability? Do you have accountability challenges as a founder? And how do you find the right groups to work with? Like, how many people are in your boot camp?
Right now I have 14 people. So I actually am I'm going to be doing like an application process, just because I want to make sure that, we have positive people that are, want to work with other folks. Right now, almost all of my cohort is like Black or brown. So that's awesome. And, just people that resonate with me and are all social impact minded. We do have some folks that are queer. We have a couple of men, right? So it's not exclusively like for women, but I definitely want to make sure that we have the right group that feels comfortable with each other.
Sure.
But what I've essentially done is created like the homework, right? That I have folks do, like homework and live groups, right? Additionally, I have deep work session and office hours. And it's really because like, I want to make sure that people are actually building things. I've done like 1 million classes. I've done like online courses. And I think a lot of us love it, especially entrepreneurs. Like we're already high overachiever people. We want to continuously be learning. But what I find missing is that accountability aspect, right? Like if you sign up for a course and then you're just like, oh my God, yes, I'm going to do it. And then you just like never do it or finish, right? And
because especially when like it goes on forever too. Some of these courses are like one tranche after another, But I love this. So you'll tell the people in your boot camp to come on, everybody, this is going to be a work day, or we're going to take the next 4 hours and we're going to do this, and you're going to have a break at this
So those
time.
are how I've done my weekend ones. Right now I'm focusing on the 10-week ones where it's like, all right, like here we're going to learn here, I host a couple of days where it's just deep work where you come and you get something done and have all of the templates built in for folks because, somebody mentioned it before, like people don't have time to figure it out themselves, right? So it's like, okay, here's the template. Now here's how you use it. Cause I think that's the most important part. Like I can give everybody my templates and all, they plug it in, but if you don't know how it works, right? Or the core concept behind it, you can't implement it correctly into your business or then your next business or as you continuously.
And I'm telling you, everybody out there, you know what I'm talking about. You start with the best intentions that I'm going to set that timer. I'm going to do this. I'm going to turn everything off. But sometimes when you're in a group and everybody is working together to make that happen, that level of getting GSD, getting stuff done will happen. And I just think that's so important. Can they find out how to become, apply, be part of your boot camp on your website?
Yeah. Right now I'm sending everything out through my newsletter. So you have the link here.
I do. I have the link right there. Everybody see it, buildingwithjoy.co/newsletter. And I'm going to put it in the comment threads too. So you can just click on it and you can go crazy and enjoy. So, we've got a few comments in here, people understanding so much. And Kelly, that was a great question, by the way, that kicked this discussion off. Where do we start? Oh my gosh. And Melissa, I do want to say Joy is always sharing so much knowledge with everyone, everywhere. And folks, if you want to learn about Pirouette NYC with the amazing Melissa Lorenzo Hervé, episode, 25 back on the Startup Life Live show back in the fall of 2020, I interviewed this phenomenal woman, and you will love how she is glowing and flowing in the world. And Leslie, yes, so important. Maximize your skill set, work intentionally, and save so many headaches. And yeah, Kelly, I imagine that does work well when you are writing, that you have to organize yourself. And I love what Melissa says here, categorizing tasks into the urgent, important quadrant has been helping me a lot with focus lately. And it can still feel overwhelming if you look at the whole dang thing. I've got to figure out manufacturing. What? Why bother even starting? You have to start somewhere. Oh, and I love this, Leslie. Thank you. Yes, sensitivity, physically and physiologically, is a thing for ADHD folks. That's why we create so many soothing strategies for ourselves. As a mother of two, of learning differences, kids, absolutely. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. And yep, Kelly,
that makes sense.
Yeah, the digital is too distracting. I have to set the timer, especially if I go on Pinterest. I'm just saying. And yes, Kelly, it's positive peer pressure. Everybody's making that commitment. And what happens is when you have a guide like Joy Valerie, who's making sure you're not taking on too much. I imagine part of that is making sure, all right, is that realistic what you're trying to do here? Share about that.
Yeah. And I think that's why I've even broken it down into 10 weeks. I might actually switch it to 12, but because, and it seems like it's going slow, but then at the same time, I don't do content until week 5 and people always want to jump into the content, but I'm just like, okay, but we need to focus, have it focused, right? We want to have a strategy. We want to have everything in place. Cause say you blow up overnight, right? Then it's just like, okay, now where did all these leads come from? Now I don't know what to do. What do I do with my money? All of that. And a lot of the times people will jump to that first or to press and doing all the things that, you see instead of the back end things that you're just like, these are the nuts and bolts that keep everything moving. And we need to set those foundations. So I definitely try to break it down a lot more. And it's been a lot of trial and error. Like I said, I used to do them weekends, and that's where I realized I was like, ooh, one weekend is great for someone that's maybe already in it, right? And just needs to clean up. But then for folks who are kind of between year 1 and 3, it's just like, okay, you need someone to hold your hand a little bit longer.
Right. Well, sometimes you have to unravel stuff. Okay, whoa, 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 whoa. You got to
Yes.
stop me doing that. That's going to get you nowhere. Where'd you learn that? You know, no shaming, no shaming. But, you know, you've got to come back and get people on the right track, get them off the groove over there. Kind of like the car wash when you miss the thing, right? And you're not on the right track. You know, you've got to get on that track so you get the perfect wash as you go through, right? Wash and dry on your car. But I think that's so important. I think what I love that you keep coming back to is the monetization of the business, because when you're launching your business, folks, it's not simple figuring so many of these things out. And I love that, especially for social impact companies who are just moved by their heart to just make it, you know, just doing something that's so important, that's helping the world. You have to focus even more on where are you going to invest the few dollars that you have to get the biggest bang for your buck, to get you to that point that's called profitability and sustainability. And I'm going to have that Profit First book in the show notes, everybody, so you can just find it on Amazon. It is a must read for new founders. So that's what I love about your bootcamp, Joy Valerie, is that you're taking people and keeping their eye on the prize.
Yeah, because I think that at the end of the day, you know, my big why, right? It's just like, I think we can, if we have the right people building and we're the ones that are controlling the money essentially, right? Like we can actually create more sustainable and more impactful business. And, you know, we're seeing the worst of business at the same time, right? Like the worst of capitalism, but we can also like have a big change if we're the ones that are creating more space for ourselves and being able to fund ourselves.
That is so important. Be able to fund ourselves and fund your impact on the world, whatever
Yep.
that looks like. And when you put in these systems and automations that Joy Valerie shares through Build with Joy, you're going to have more joy in your life because you're not going to feel as overwhelmed. I mean, just for, you know, going live twice a week, for example, this is a live event, right? So I have all my systems and procedures. So I know that on Monday I'm doing this, Tuesday and that, Wednesday and that, you know, and I refine them and I find like what time of day even works better for me to do these certain activities. So I'm sure that's what folks learn in your boot camp. Yeah.
Yes, yes, definitely. Because, you know, once you have more time, you have more joy in your life and you're able to focus on the things that make you happy.
Look at that. Look at Joy having a good time everywhere she goes, helping people around the world. I bet you can't wait to start traveling again.
I'm so excited.
Oh
I want
my
to just go to the
gosh.
beach.
So you've been on this founder journey for a while. So you've been, you know, understanding some of the pitfalls, some of the things that happen as you build, even though you're building with joy, you're building and going through a lot of the headaches. I'd love for you to share with folks some of your founder journey hacks, meaning when you're feeling inadequate, because folks, you're going to always feel inadequate. I don't care how successful you are. I have a TED Talk for that. Not mine, someone else's, but it's, you know, someone who's a billionaire out of Australia who's had many businesses. He talks about this. But Joy, what have you done when you've been awake at night wondering, you know, are you doing the right thing, or you've come up against a brick wall and you don't know how to solve that problem and you're struggling? What's a mindset hack or two that you can share with others that will help them on their founder journey?
Yeah, well, so funny enough, you know, I think I do two little things, which I like to write a lot. So I have a ton of like notes in my phone, in my notebook of just, you know, why I want to do things, what my big goals are. So I think whenever I'm feeling discouraged, I look back on that and I'm like, okay, these are my end goals. But also the other thing is I get a lot of messages from folks, right, that have, you know, somehow I've helped them without even realizing it, right? Maybe like it was an Instagram post that I shared or something that I said, and I screenshot a lot of those and I have a folder in my phone. So I think those is kind of like the little pick me ups. Like whenever I feel like, why am I doing this? I'm just this crazy person on the internet. And I'm like, what? You know, a lot of the times I feel like I'm oversharing. And, you know, those messages when people tell me like, oh, this really helped me or you inspired me, those kind of keep me going. So, you know, whenever I do feel like I don't know what I'm doing, I kind of look at those and I'm like, okay, like there's a purpose and there's a meaning for all of this.
And then you can
take
those screenshots and put them on your Pinterest board, testimonials, to remind myself
I definitely need to do that. That's one of the things that I was just like, oh, I don't want to be too braggy or anything. But then I'm like, wait, no, but these aren't lies. Like, that's the other thing.
Hey, Francis, thank you for this great feedback. Yay. And on YouTube, the emoji is going to show the name of the emoji, but we're just going to go like this. Great session.
I was trying to figure out which one it was. It was like,
it's great. You can add these little screenshots while you're at it. Those are good ideas. They certainly are. And how has entrepreneurship served you? Because first-time founders, authors like Kelly, folks who are going down a path of fulfillment by bringing your work to the world, your gifts to the world, however that's showing up, it serves you. And no matter what you do, you will not lose by launching something. Okay. It's so important that you do it because you are going to go deeper into who you be and who you are. You're going to realize things about yourself that you would never have uncovered and discovered without this journey. So how has this journey served you, Joy Valerie?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I've always worked with startups and I've loved it, but I think the biggest thing of working for myself has been that I've gotten to be myself. Like, as much as people always valued like my intelligence and how I'm able to build things, especially as, Guatemalan woman and being first gen, being a woman in the tech space, in the media tech space specifically, there's not that many of us that I always felt like I had to be code switching, right? And being able to work for myself, I can choose who I want to work with. I can choose, make sure that we have our values aligned, but also I can literally be myself. So I think that's been the biggest and happiest part about everything, is just getting to own my greatness and my awkwardness and finding the people who want to work with me.
Okay, hold on, everybody. It's coming on here. Oh, yeah. Stitch that on a pillow. Own my awesomeness and my awkwardness.
The awkwardness. I gotta own the awkward.
Come on, own your awkwardness. That is brilliant. I need to do the one with the clapping. Hold on. I grabbed the wrong one. Here we go. Own your awkwardness. This is there's a beautiful quote by Lady Gaga about this, Joy Valerie, which is just being who you be and owning that bit of you, because that's the beauty. That's the differentiator, if you want to use it in business terms, for what separates you from everybody else doing this. It's what makes you unique and helps you vibe with your tribe. So don't try. The quote I shared today was from, someone way back in Aristotle's day, which is, the same shoe does not fit on every foot. Okay. So as you're watching everybody doing their thing, it's all right. It's, what you're bringing has never been done before by you or for the people you're doing it for. So be you and own your awkwardness. Woohoo! This has been so much fun. How can the Startup Life Live community continue to support you, open doors for you, add wind to your sails? Because this is how we love to flow and glow in the world.
Yeah, well, definitely subscribing to my newsletter. I share a lot of resources. I'm aiming to do it once a week. I've been doing it bi-weekly. I share events that are going on, things I have going on, and also resources for folks to be more productive and efficient. But also following me on social media. I'm most active on Twitter and Instagram. Mainly Twitter, though. I'm Build with Joy there, and buildwithjoy.co on Instagram, and you can share my content and let people know, if they find it useful. And if you find it useful, let me know. I'm always happy to hear when people connect or find value in what I have to share.
It is so good. And I highly recommend following you on Instagram because of your stories, because you just pick up and you start going, you're out there walking and you've got the phone out like this. And I'm like, what? This is all gems. Yes. And I get my clappers out and get very excited about what you're laying down. It's so, so wonderful. And thank you, Leslie and Francis. Woohoo! And Kelly. Yes. Her newsletter is, Leslie, her newsletter is everything. Yes.
Thank you.
And Kelly, thank you. And let's see, it has such a great tone. One of my fave ones lately. Isn't it great when you get a newsletter and you can't wait to open it up? I think that is the best right there. And we got 100% hashtag facts right there from Francis. Oh my gosh, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Build with Joy, for bringing your incredible wisdom, insights, own your awkwardness, streamline your business, automate your business, because what we're really taking away from here is profitable and sustainable businesses are what bring you deep joy. Just saying.
I grew up poor and I've had good jobs, and let me tell you, it's not fun. It's not fun being poor. It's not fun being broke. So we're going to focus on
right. And what happens too is when you're so busy in your business and you've got all these things and everything's ruling you, you're not able to work on your business. So when you get these things systematized and automated, it frees you up to go, okay, what's my next new idea? Or I had that great idea in the shower this morning. I can implement that now. And especially if they're part of a boot camp with you, because you can say, hey, I've got this idea. What do you think? And how do we break this down? So I am so delighted you joined me. Thank you so much. And do you have any last thoughts for everybody before I pop you in the green room?
Just go off and have a great day.
Yay.
Do something that scares you today and just start. That's the biggest thing.
I love that. Thank you, Joy Valerie. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in live. We had a great live chat today. Thank you guys so much. And on the replay, thank you for coming by and grabbing Joy's nuggets. I have to tell you, she's been an inspiration to me on Twitter. I have the links in the show notes, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere Joy Valerie glows. You want to be following her and grabbing her gems, and just her random comments will bring a smile to your face and light up your heart. It's really delicious, and it's why she has such a great following. I want to share with you who's going to be on next, because, I go live every Tuesday and Friday at 1 p.m. EST, and here's who's joining us on Friday, April 2nd. At 1 p.m. EST, it's Alyssa Unton, and she's the founder and CEO of ArcVita, the Stitch Fix for Careers platform, providing personalized, technology-enabled career guidance with full support to U.S. professionals who are actively seeking their optimal career move. And sometimes that also means entrepreneurs, folks, because side hustles are real. And what I love about ArcVita is that it personalizes and guides your job search experience to your specific needs. And I want you to take this in by first understanding what lights you up, what energizes you, what impact you want to have in the world, and how do you want to spend your days. Oh my gosh. Well, I've been unemployable since 92. However, that almost makes me want to just try it, thinking, they're going to ask me what lights me up. But Alyssa and the folks at ArcVita are really revolutionizing how folks get on the other side and get the jobs that are meaningful for them, are on their path, and align them with the companies so that they're vibing with their tribe. So before I head off and end the show, I just want to remind everybody to promise me you'll remember that you're braver than you believe, you're stronger than you seem, and oh yeah, we learned this with Joy Valerie, you're smarter than you think, wicked smarter, as we say here in Boston. Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in. And I can't wait to see you the next time on the Startup Life live show. Wishing you a delicious day. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Cheers.